मुझे पता है आप सभी एक सॉलिड सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपर बनना चाहते हो। कैरिंग अ मैकबुक, वर्किंग इन एसी रूम, ट्रैवलिंग द ग्लोब, ये सारी चीजें हमारे दिमाग में आती है जब एक सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर बनने का ख्वाब हम सोचते हैं। बट सेड दैट, एक अच्छा सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर बनने के लिए आज के डेट में करोड़ों की सैलरी लेने के लिए, एक अच्छा पे चेक लेने के लिए, एक अच्छा काम करने के लिए, व्हाट आर द कोर फ्यू फंडामेंटल कॉन्सेप्ट व्हिच एवरी सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर शुड नो। आज के डेट में दोस्त, जरूरी नहीं है कि यू हैव टू हैव अ डिग्री ऑफ कंप्यूटर साइंस। अगर आपका इंटरेस्ट है, अगर आपके पास स्किल सेट है, देन एनी कंपनी ऑफ दिस ग्लोब इज विलिंग टू टेक यू ऑन द जॉब्स। पर वो स्किल सेट क्या है, वो बेसिक फाउंडेशन क्या है? तो इस वीडियो में मैं आपको बताने वाला हूँ 25 मिनिमल बेसिक कंप्यूटर साइंस प्रिंसिपल्स और द कॉन्सेप्ट व्हिच एवरी सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर शुड नो। तो करना क्या है, एंड तक इस वीडियो को देखो, ध्यान से एक ही कॉन्सेप्ट को समझने की कोशिश करो, बिकॉज दीज विल सेट यू द बेसिक बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक्स which will help you get achieve the bigger heights in the field of software development. Let's start this video. So आज का टॉपिक ये है 25 concepts which every programmer should know. In fact मैं तो ये बोलता हूँ कि कोई अगर प्रोग्रामर नहीं भी है, right, उनको भी ये टॉपिक्स देखना चाहिए, सुनना चाहिए, because that will help you a little technically better understand how things works in the field of IT. Right? So let's first start the very first topic. So first thing that we'll start with the basics of computer. I think all of you would have already heard it, but let's go a little deeper. So the first term I want you people to be extremely clear of is called as operating system. Right? Is called as an operating system. Let's keep it very simple. I know that at the end of a day, everything that you do inside a computer, they lie in something called as हार्डवेयर, और आई कैन कॉल इट एज हार्ड डिस्क। आप कंप्यूटर के अंदर में जो भी ऑपरेशन कर रहे हो, वो एक हार्ड डिस्क, एक स्टेबल स्टोरेज के अंदर में स्टोर होगा, समवेयर इन द फॉर्म ऑफ 0 and 1, राइट? एम आई क्लियर? डज इट मेक सेंस? सबको क्लियर है ना? एट द एंड ऑफ एवरीथिंग दैट यू डू, इट इज अ डेटा, एंड द डेटा विल बी स्टोर्ड इन द फॉर्म ऑफ 1010, करेक्ट? And to the other extreme of this is the user like you and me. For example, we are right now connected to each other over a Zoom call, either using a mobile phone or a laptop. Right? So at one end, I have a hardware which is 0 and 1. At the other end, the user who's trying to use it. Use it with the help of apps, use it with the help of browsers. Correct? So the middle layer in between, इन दोनों के बीच का जो ये middle layer है boss, which facilitates that the different systems of the computer work, this is actually an operating system. This is actually an operating system. So if I give you a real world analogy, right? Operating system, if I have to give you an analogy, let's say that, what is a real world analogy of an operating system, right? So if you have heard of a term called as a CEO, Chief Executive Officer, if you talk about any company, right? For example, अभी मैं Amers चलाता हूँ, मैं Amers का CEO हूँ. In any company, you have the multiple teams, right? You have the marketing team, you have the finance team, you have the tech team, you have the sales team, you have, let's say that, for example, HR team. Now, one person who kind of stitch all of them together, ताकि पूरी कंपनी एक डायरेक्शन में अच्छे तरीके से मूव कर पाए. Who is that guy? That guy is Mr. CEO, Chief Executive Officer. I also can call it as Chief Everything Officer. Same way, आपके कंप्यूटर की अगर मैं बात करूं, computer is also like a company in which there are different components. For example, you have the hard disk. Say, for example, you have the softwares. Say, for example, you have the memory to be managed. Say, for example, you have the space which has to be managed. Say, for example, you have CPU to be managed. Now, one guy who takes control of all of these, say that boss, जो मैं चाहूंगा वही होगा, वैसे ये computer move करेगा. That one thing typically is called as operating system. तो कोई भी डिवाइस जो आप दुनिया में यूज करते हो, उस डिवाइस को यूज करने के लिए उसमें ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम होना काफी ज्यादा जरूरी है। एम आई क्लियर सर? डज इट मेक सेंस? तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आप फोन यूज करते हो, फोन में कौन सा, व्हाट इज द हाईएस्ट मोस्टली यूज फोन्स में कौन सा ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम यूज करते हैं? वी मेक यूज ऑफ एंड्रॉइड, राइट? फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आप आईफोन की बात करते हो, इट मेक्स यूज ऑफ iOS. अगर आप लैपटॉप की बात करते हो, देन यू हैव यूनिक्स, लिनक्स, right? You have Windows, you have Mac OS, right? So almost every device that you go and make use of, it need to have an operating system. You have a smart TV, it need to have an operating system. You have a smart fridge, it need to have an operating system. So every device which you think you can use, you can program, it has an operating system in it. Am I clear, sir? Does it make sense? चलिए क्वेश्चन आपसे पूछ लेता हूं. Have you guys drawn money from the ATMs? आप लोगों ने पैसा निकाला एटीएम से कभी? आईसीआईसीआई बैंक का या एचडीएफसी का या एसबीआई का? कैन यू गाइस मेक अ गेस? एटीएम के अंदर में जो कंप्यूटर होता है दोस्त, it is which operating system, which OS? Right now in India 90% of the ATMs, they use the same operating system. Can you guys make a guess which is that? Which operating system do you think the ATMs has? It is actually Windows XP. 90% of the ATM devices that you use in the market, next time you go and draw the money, तो अगर आपको गाली देना हो कि क्या काम नहीं कर रहा, what is that? That's Windows XP. Now the beautiful part of this is Windows XP is getting no more support from the Microsoft. They have lifted off the support of the Windows XP. Still the ATMs are using it because this is one of the most stable operating system for the banking purposes. So Windows XP is the operating system which people are using. Cool. एक और फैक्ट अगर मैं आपको बताऊं, if I go and talk about the 90% of all the servers or data centers or all your favorite applications, for example, Google, Meta, LinkedIn, if I go and ask you, they are working on which operating system, what will be the answer? Can you guys make a guess? Why Linux? दो तीन रीजन है. Linux can be easily extended, they are secure, right? And they can be easily customized. And that's why I always tell my student, Lord, अगर आप टेकी हो, अगर आप कॉलेज में हो या फिर बाहर हो, आप सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर बनना चाहते हो, don't work on Windows. Even if you have a Windows laptop, that's okay. एक वर्चुअल एनवायरनमेंट कर लो, Oracle वर्चुअल बॉक्स ले लो, उसमें install a Linux. So one thing that I want you people to go and do from here is that if you want to become a solid engineer, don't work on Windows, boss. बिल्कुल भी नहीं. आपको क्या यूज करना है? आपको एक Linux उठा लेना है, right? Use any Linux version. एथिकल हैकिंग का जब मैं वर्कशॉप लेता हूं तो मैंने नॉर्मली कहता हूं कि आप काली लिनक्स यूज करो, ठीक है? तो यू शुड डेफिनेटली यूज द लिनक्स सिस्टम इफ यू वांट टू गो एंड मेक यूज ऑफ. चलिए एक इससे रिलेटेड वर्ड में बोल देता हूं. सुपर कंप्यूटर पता है क्या आपको? व्हाट इज अ सुपर कंप्यूटर? एनीवन इन द क्लास? व्हाट इज अ सुपर कंप्यूटर गाइस? व्हाट इज अ सुपर कंप्यूटर? और इंडिया के पास एक सुपर कंप्यूटर है, क्या नाम है उसका? देखो नॉर्मली व्हेन यू गो एंड बाय अ लैपटॉप इन द स्टोर, अमेजन से जब खरीदते हो तो आप बोलते हो इज इट अ सिंगल प्रोसेसर, इट इज अ मल्टी कोर प्रोसेसर, राइट? इस तरीके के आप सवाल पूछते हो. जितना ज्यादा कोर उतना ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिव. सुपर कंप्यूटर्स आर दोज व्हिच हैव एटलीस्ट मिलियंस और थाउजेंड्स ऑफ कोर्स. दे कैन डू द पैरेलल प्रोसेसिंग. इंडिया के पास भी अपना एक इंडिजिनस सुपर कंप्यूटर आ चुका है, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज परम सिद्धि AI, right? And this has been created by CDAC. Cool. Let's move to the next one, which actually I mentioned in my LinkedIn post today. The question is, what is the meaning of a bare metal or a virtual machine, guys? आप बस इसको पता है? Try to make it simple and help me understand. What is a bare metal or what is a virtual machine? So now let's try to understand what a bare metal is. bare metal. Let's say that you have to run an application. You have to run an application. And this application requires a lot of storage. This application requires a huge computation. And you also want to make sure that this application is being not shared with anything else. It has to be highly secure. So if you have to run this way, typically what you do is that you just have a dedicated system. You have a dedicated server, dedicated machine. And this entire machine is being used to just run this application. No other thing is running up here. You are using the entire RAM, entire CPU, entire storage, everything in this machine for running this one and only one application from one place. This mode of running or hosting an application is called as a bare metal. Am I clear, sir? I'm again repeating. Let's say that you have an application and you feel that it's very much compute intensive. It requires a high storage. It has to be highly secure. So for that, what do? You take a physical device. This is a physical device, right? This is a dedicated physical device. You go and run this application inside this, and this application can take hold of the entire resource of this laptop, entire storage, entire compute, right? All the cores. Then you go and say that, boss, I'm running this application in a bare metal fashion. I'm running this in the bare metal fashion. Am I clear, sir? Does it make sense? If you give a real world example, no, let me understand one virtual machine also, then I'll give you the real life analogy so that you never forget in the class. No, the way how we will learn in the session today so that you don't have to revise. So पूरी life ये सारे concept याद रखने वाले. Just keep a little focus with me. So the first one is the bare metal. That's number one. The next concept is the virtual machine, VM. अब VM का मतलब है विश्वा मोहन नहीं है. VM का मतलब है यहाँ पे virtual machine. Now, can you guys tell me what is a virtual machine? What is a virtual machine? So normally what happens, let's say that normally what happens, let's say, for example, in the case of the cloud provider like AWS, and we'll talk about it later. Let's say that you have a big computer. You have a big computer. No, this has a high RAM, high storage, multiple cores. Now on this single machine, if I go and spawn some sort of multiple logical small servers, small machines inside this, I have one big physical machine, and inside that physical machine I go and launch small logical physical machine, logical machines. I also can call it as virtual machines. And each of machines, say for example, this host might be running something called as Windows. And then I launch each individual machines inside it. Each of them will have its own share of, say for example, it will be running Unix. It might be running Linux. It might be running Windows. Let's assume that, right? And let's say that the host machine has total RAM of say like 128 GB. Now on this 128 GB, let's say that I give this machine something called as a 64 GB RAM. This machine also got say like 32 GB, and this machine also got that 32 GB. So from one single big physical machine, when you try to create virtual multiple dedicated machines, which are virtual, but they have their own operating system, they have their dedicated memory, they have their dedicated storage, that's typically is called as the virtual machine. That's typically is called as a virtual machine. And this is being done by a device called as the hypervisor. This is done by something called as a hypervisor. अब थोड़ा एक मिनट रुको, I'll give you a relevant real world example and then come back again so that things become very crystal. Let me give you a real world analogy. Okay, I love taking analogies when I'm teaching to the students. Let's assume that you have to go and rent a place to live. right? Let's say that you have a lot of money. खूब पैसा है आपके पास. You have a fat check. So what you decide that one of the option that you have is that you go and rent a villa, private villa. एक प्राइवेट विला में आप जाके रहने लगे हो सर, राइट? उस पूरे विला का गार्डन भी आपका, बाथरूम भी आपका, पूरा घर, टेरेस, एवरीथिंग इज योर्स. It's you and only you there. That is one option. The another option here is that you go to a society. थोड़ा कम पैसा, ठीक है ना, आपने अच्छे से सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग नहीं करी, आपने एमर्स में कोर्स नहीं लिया, ठीक है, तो you go to, let's say for example, a society. In the society there are different types of, different flats. There is a flat 1, there is a flat 2, there is a flat 3, there is a flat 4, there is a flat 5, there is a flat 6, and then in each flat you have some common things, like you have a common lift, you have a common playground, you have common entrance, right? And this is a society, and then there is a society manager. There's a society manager here. Now, if you have understood things, can you guys tell me, if I go and ask you that out of this, what is a bare metal in this case? If I go and talk about bare metal, कौन सा इसमें आपका bare metal है? Can you guys help me understand? What is a bare metal in this example? What is a bare metal? Right? So the first one is the bare metal, जहां पे सब कुछ आपका, right? This is the example of the bare metal, where the entire thing is yours, your private control. You can customize the way you want. You cannot, that is called as a bare metal. What is a virtual machine? This is one big society. In this one society, you have the multiple flats. Each flat is independent. It has its own area, own balcony, own kitchen. Each of them flat is a virtual machine. Each one have that independent space, but there is some shared thing which they, share. Everyone has to share the same lift. Everyone has to share the same playground. Everyone has to share the same entrance. To manage the entire society, you have something called as a society manager, which is nothing but a hypervisor. That's called as a hypervisor. So hypervisor is a technique which helps you to spawn virtual machines from a same single machine. So now if I go and repeat here, right? So if I have one dedicated machine and my entire application is just only this is running in this machine, this is an example of my bare metal server. On the other hand, let's say that I have a machine, I have one physical machine, and in this physical machine, with the help of hypervisor, I have spawned few more virtual machines. On this virtual machine, let's say that it is Windows which is running. In this, let's say that it is a Linux which is running. In this, let's say for example, Kali is running. Right? In this, I'm running app 1. This I'm running app 2. This I'm running app 3. This is an example of virtual machine. Am I clear, people? याद रहेगा सबको? जब भी आप भूलोगे, make use of this example, right? If you want a villa, you are a bare metal. If you can survive in a flats in a society, then it's a virtual machine. The virtual machine is like any laptop. Now, what happens in your colleges also, right? What happens in your colleges? In the colleges, they buy a big computer, one big computer, big server. This will have the high CPU. It will have memory, storage. ये सारा कुछ ज़्यादा होगा, right? Now there are multiple students who have to go and work on it. Now multiple students cannot work on the same computer at the same time, right? So what the college normally do is that on the top of it, they go and apply something called as concept of hypervisor. And using hypervisor, they create multiple virtual box, which is not the actual laptop, but it's a virtual box. The virtual machines. Now each of the student, उसको एक यूजर पासवर्ड, तो जब लॉगिन करता है तो इस वर्चुअल मशीन में लॉगिन करता है, जब ये लॉगिन करता है तो इस वर्चुअल मशीन में लॉगिन, ये तो एक ही सिस्टम है, बट मल्टीपल पीपल आर एबल टू यूज इट बिकॉज ऑफ दिस कॉन्सेप्ट कॉल्ड एज अ वर्चुअल मशीन. दैट्स हाउ योर सिस्टम वर्क्स इन योर कॉलेजेस. Is everyone clear to this point? Is everyone crystal clear? What is a operating system? What is a bare metal? What is a virtual machine? Is everyone crystal clear, boss? हमेशा याद रहेगा? याद रहेगा ना? चलो. So now one more relatable thing is that a new buzzword has come up which is called as a containers. What is containers, boss? Containers क्या है फिर? We have only talked about bare metals. We have talked about virtual machine. What are containers? So containers को अगर मैं सेम अगर लाइट वर्जन में बोलूं, देखो आपके पास खूब सारा पैसा, आपने एमर्स में कोर्स लिया, तो आपने ले लिया विला, राइट, इन विच यू गेट द हाउस एंड यू ऑल्सो गेट दिस एंटायर एरिया, कंप्लीट एरिया, यू गेट द ओनरशिप. थोड़ा कम आपने पैसा लिया, तो आपने बोला कि बॉस एक काम करता हूं, मैं एक सोसाइटी में, आई गो इन टू अ सोसाइटी, and in the society there are multiple flats, flat 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, da 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 da. I take one of this flat. This will be termed as virtual machine, and this is the example of my bare metal. Fair enough. Now, if I go and extend the same example, I'm telling you so that you guys never forget in the lab, because whenever I ask people what is container, they always find like कि पता तो है पर बता नहीं पाऊंगा. Right? So let's say that अगर मान लो अभी आप बैचलर्स हो, अभी आप जॉब्स की तैयारी ही कर रहे हो, and let's say that your dad is not like Ambani's who can give you कि बॉस जाओ और हाथी को पालो, right? हाथी के लिए लड्डू बनाओ. They cannot do it because we are a very mango people. तो क्या होगा फिर उस वाले केस में? आप एक घर ढूंढोगे, एक फ्लैट, मान लो एक 3 BHK फ्लैट. उस 3 BHK फ्लैट में रूम्स होंगे, रूम 1, रूम 2, रूम 3, and then will be a common kitchen, there is a common hall, there is a common bathroom. और आप बोलोगे दोस्त मुझे एक रूम चाहिए. जब पहली दफा मैं भी बैंगलोर आया था जॉब लेने के लिए, जॉब लेके आया था, तो मैं भी रूम ही ढूंढ रहा था. So when you go and look for this room, right, this is like a container. This is like a container. So now if I go and talk about technicality, ये है आपका relatives, ताकि आप इसको याद रखो. And if I go and talk about the relative example of this, the actual technical example. So what is a container? So let's say that you have a system, and this is the Linux. Let's assume that it is a Linux operating system, or it could be anything. Say for instance, a Windows operating system. Now inside this, a container is just like a container. It's lightweight. It only so it only have all the things. It has all the things needed to run the code. So the container only comprises of the code. It comprises of the libraries. It comprises of the code environment. It comprises of all the dependencies. So container only comprises of these things, right? Rest all the other things, say for example, storage, network, cores, RAM, everything, it relies on the underlying host system itself, right? So container is nothing but container which contains the complete environment for running the code, all the dependencies, but for operating system, for the network, for the RAM, everything, it relies heavily on the underlying system, and that's the typical definition of a container is. So just like a virtual machine, one system can have multiple container C1, container C2, container C3, container C4, like this. You can have the multiple containers. I'm again repeating, each container that you have, all the container will have the host, operating system, memory, network, storage. So all the containers that you see will have shared the same host operating system, same host memory, same host network, same storage, and each container specifically will have the, inside each of this you will have the environment to run the code. अभी जितने भी कंटेनर्स है, कब वो अप होगा, कब वो डाउन होगा, कब वो एग्जीक्यूट होगा, उसके लिए container executor चाहिए होता है. Example of that could be, say for example, Docker. Docker is an example of it. I'm planning to start do a special boot camp on Docker and Kubernetes, and the core of that is the concept of this container. Perfect, very nice. So now if you have to decide कि भैया मेरे पास है bare metal, मेरे पास है virtual machine, and मेरे पास है containers. Now I have an application. I build an application, boss. मैंने एक application बनाया. Where should I go and use it? I should deploy in the bare metal. I should go deploy in the virtual machine. I should go and deploy in the content. How should I decide? So if I have my application, which is very much compute intensive, बहुत ज्यादा कंप्यूटेशन चाहिए, खूब सारा इसमें स्टोरेज चाहिए, ये काफी ज्यादा सिक्योर एप्लीकेशन होने वाला है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ आई एम बिल्डिंग एप्लीकेशन फॉर बैंक्स को चाहिए भैया सिक्योरिटी, तो वहां पे मैं क्या यूज करूंगा? I'll go and make use of the bare metals. Fair enough. Cool. I'm someone where I have, and I know I don't have much money. I have less budgets. मेरे पास पैसे थोड़े कम हैं, but I have to build the big applications. I want to make use of clouds like AWS, Google Cloud. ये सारी चीजें मैं use करना चाहता हूँ. So for me, the best use cases of the virtual machines. तीसरा, I want to build small applications, small apps. मेरा एक ऐसा एप्लीकेशन है जिसमें जो लोड है ना वो कभी भी ऊपर जाता है, कभी भी नीचे जाता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एप्लीकेशंस लाइक ट्विटर. ऑन ट्विटर लेट्स से दैट मोदी जी सडनली ट्वीट्स दैट बॉस आज से फिर से जितने भी नोट है 500 के वो सारे बंद. Suddenly what will happen? Everyone will start retweeting on the Twitter, on X, and suddenly the load on the system will go up. So you will need to scale up and scale down very quickly. So all those are applications where you want them to be load very fast. You have to scale up, scale down very quickly. Typically, those kind of application requires the container-based. Those requires the container-based deployments. अब इसमें कुछ चीजें आपको एलियन लग रही हो, ज्यादा उसमें टेंशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है, बिकॉज उसके लिए आपको थोड़ा सा डिटेल में चीजों को तो पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. उसके लिए हमारे पास डिटेल कोर्सेज हैं जहां पे मैं आपको डिटेल में चीजें पढ़ाता हूँ. पर अभी के लिए इतना शुड बी इनफ फॉर यू. यू शुड बी एबल टू क्लियरली से दैट व्हाट इज अ बेयर मेटल, what is a virtual machine, what is a container. Am I clear, people? Does it make sense to everyone? Types of programming paradigms. There are so many programming languages in the earth, right? For example, you have Python, you have C++, you have Java, you have C#, you have Golang, you have Erlang. There are so many languages. But all these programming languages could be divided into the 4 different types primarily. वो 4 टाइप क्या है? Let's try to talk about it. तो पहले प्रोग्रामिंग पैराडिग्म की बात कर लेते हैं. पहला प्रोग्रामिंग पैराडिग्म जो है उसको हम कहते हैं सर प्रोसीड्यूरल प्रोग्रामिंग paradigm. Procedural means that something in which you try to break them into the procedures. Procedure का मतलब होता है steps. So let's say that if I have a problem statement and I try to break it into the smaller steps, say for example step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4, and then you do the end. That is the example of a procedural programming. And normally in the procedural programming, every time you complete a step, you take a Boolean decision. For example, if the problem statement is कि विश्वा जाके चाय बना के लेके आओ. Step 1, Vishwa goes to the kitchen. Step 2, the Vishwa takes water in the kettle. Step 3, Vishwa switches on the gas. Step 4, the water starts boiling. Step 5, he adds milk. He then adds sugar. Then he adds tea powder. चाय बन गया. So when you try to go and break a problem into the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, that's typically example of a procedural programming. An example of that is जो आप सभी ने पढ़ा होगा almost, I'm very sure, because the initial years of BCA में, initial years of MCA में, initial years of bachelor में सब में पढ़ाया जाता है, and that is called as a C programming language. ठीक है, C programming language से आप अपने normal वार्तालाप में भी C का काफी प्रयोग करते हो. बट सी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज से आपकी प्रोग्रामिंग की शुरुआत होती है नॉर्मली सी कॉलेज में, सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज सी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज। अगर आपने सी पढ़ा है तो आपको याद होगा जब व्हेन योर टीचर वाज टीचिंग यू सी, दे आल्सो टॉट यू समथिंग कॉल्ड एज अ फ्लो चार्ट्स। Flow charts, because the same problem we are trying to break them into the steps. So normally around 1980s जब C का जन्म होता है, at that time it was very famous. So normally any kind of problem statements which you can break them into a smaller steps, take Boolean decisions, C type programming comes very handy. So normally उस time पे mostly जो problems होते थे वो mathematical होते थे, mostly were statistical. तो इस टाइप के सिचुएशन में प्रॉब्लम को ब्रेक करना काफी ज्यादा आसान होता था, एंड दैट वाज सी वाज अ वेरी ह्यूज फेवरेट दैट टाइम। इवन टुडे इन द मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड, say for example the companies who make chips, who makes operating systems, who make kernel, right, trading applications, wherever you feel that you can break the big steps into the smaller steps and take boolean decisions at each step, that's typically an example of a procedural programming. Am I making sense? Does it make sense? Procedural programming समझ में आ गया आपको? ठीक है, कूल है। तो पहला पैराडाइम था प्रोसीजरल प्रोग्रामिंग का। दूसरा क्या हुआ? तो एज सून एज वी रीच्ड अराउंड ईयर 2000s, the whole world was taken by something taken as a storm. The whole world was taken as a storm. What is the biggest change which happened in the year 2000, sir? That was www revolution. Very nice. Or I can say that internet came up. And because of the internet coming, one thing happened. Everyone, right, we all used to making the applications of the real world. If you look around yourself since the morning till the night, आप सुबह में उठते हो, अगर आपको नाश्ता ढूंढना है, you go and call Swiggy. Then you have to do the order any item, you go and call Amazon, right? उसके बाद आपको दोस्तों से बात करनी है, you do the WhatsApp. आपको सोशल मीडिया इन्फ्लुएंसर बनना है, you make use of Instagram. आप लोगों के लिए दोस्त मैं I really feel jealous. Even your dating game is sorted. You have Bumble, right? Dating से काम नहीं चला, then you have a super app called as Sadi.com. शादी करके परेशान हो गए हो तो doctor.com. The point that I'm trying to tell here is that from the morning till end, almost everything that we do in the modern world has something to do with the real world applications that is running with the help of the internet. मतलब ये है कि अगर आज की डेट में आप सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर की तरह काम करोगे in any company, right, almost 99% of every company is building the applications for real world. अब रियल वर्ल्ड का एप्लीकेशन बनाना है तो रियल वर्ल्ड में कुछ चैलेंजेस है बॉस। रियल वर्ल्ड में अगर रियल वर्ल्ड का एप्लीकेशन बनाना है तो रियल वर्ल्ड को आपको रिप्रेजेंट करना पड़ेगा प्रोग्रामिंग की दुनिया में, है ना सर? अब रियल वर्ल्ड में आपके पास है रियल वर्ल्ड एंटिटीज लाइक ह्यूमंस एंड द कार। अब इस ह्यूमन या कार का एक स्टेट है, फॉर एग्जांपल इसका नेम है, इसका एज है और इसका कुछ बिहेवियर है। दिस कैन डांस, दिस कैन अटेंड द क्लासेस इन द एमर्स, दिस गाय कैन गो इन द एमर्स, राइट? ये कार है, कार का अपना एक कलर है, कार का अपना एक ब्रांड है, and the car has a behavior that you can go and apply the brake. Ab, if I have to go and solve this real world problem, I have to go and somehow represent in the world of programming. अभी तक क्या था मेरे पास? प्रोसीड्यूरल प्रोग्रामिंग था, C. C only knew how to break them into the steps. C only knew either 0 or 1. But real world में तो यार yes का मतलब yes नहीं होता और no का मतलब no नहीं होता. We have to hear between the lines, right? So this old programming concept, which was procedural, fall flat. And a new programming paradigm came into the action. What was that? Can you guys make a guess which programming paradigm it might be? It was object-oriented programming. It was object-oriented programming. Am I clear? Does it make sense? So that is the real world, and then you go in the world of the programming. That was called as object-oriented programming. That was one problem. The another problem, they said that boss, real world entities are not enough in the real world. There's one important thing. And guys, you tell me, एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट वर्ल्ड है रियल वर्ल्ड में, उसको हम कहते हैं रिलेशनशिप। आप लोगों के हिसाब से, और मैं बताऊंगा इससे पहले मैंने जितनी दफा ये क्वेश्चन पूछा है लोगों से, लोगों का क्या आंसर है, बट एज पर यू पीपल, व्हाट डू यू गाइस थिंक, इज रिलेशनशिप इंपॉर्टेंट इन लाइफ? आपको क्या लगता है, रिलेशनशिप अच्छा है? जो या तो रिलेशनशिप से खुश है या फिर रिलेशनशिप में जाना चाहते हैं? और इसमें से काफी लोग कह रहे हैं नो, अंगूर खट्टे, राइट? और कुछ जो बुद्धिजीवी लोग हैं यहाँ पे, they are saying that depends. I agree to all of you people. that relationship is important, relationship is bad also sometime when you feel that boss सामने वाला तो बिल्कुल दबा के रखा हुआ है, right? And it depends. But one thing that you all will agree, this could be bad or good, but it is definitely important, right? It's definitely important, right? I believe all of you will agree to this. So relationship अगर important है boss, see in every small thing that we have to do in the real world, say for example I have to go and get a medicine from the medicine shop. I got down, I interacted with my car, so I had to have some relationship with my car. कार से लेके मैं drive करके I went to the market. In the market I went to the shop. I actually talked to the pharmacy guy to help me that Dolo 650. So even for doing a small thing, I have to interact. Say for example, right now, right? You people are there, that side of the table, that side of the Zoom screen. I'm here, I'm interacting with you people. There's some kind of relationship, then only this meeting is happening. So for anything that happened in the real world, you have to have the relationship. And again, for that, we had something called as a oops concept. So आज के डेट में one programming language or one programming paradigm which all of you should be aware of, then only you'll be able to build the real world application is the oops programming paradigm. Or example of that is Java boss. Example of that is C++. Even to Python to some extent is, even JavaScript to some extent is object. So every programming language on the earth these days, they make sure that कि भैया थोड़ा सा oops तो मेरे अंदर में आ ही जाए, because only if there is a oops then I will be able to build an application. Am I clear, sir? Does it make sense, guys? It is called object oriented because see in the real world you have these entities. No, boss. Now if I have to build an applications in the world of programming, I have to represent that in some way. So to represent this real world in the program of programming, we use a central concept called as object. So object is basically a representation of the humans or the car in the world of the programming. So at the core of the programming, we have objects, which are the personification of the real and non-living things in the real world. This is called as an object-oriented programming. Am I clear, boss? Sure. So we have talked about two programming patterns. One was the procedural. The second one is the object-oriented. Right. Now the third programming paradigm is called as functional. Functional programming paradigm is a style of the programming where there are few core concepts. Where I could say this function is a first class citizen. अब इसका मतलब क्या है? Function is a first class citizen. Function is a first class citizen का मतलब ये होता है कि ऐसा programming language जहां पे functions are treated just like any other variable. जैसे आप वेरिएबल को ट्रीट करते हो ना, you can pass inside a function, you can return from a function, you can assign to a value. So function is a first class citizen of functional programming. That's number one. And the another principle of the functional programming is that it's mostly immutable. Immutable मतलब whatever the objects that you go and define in the functional programming, they can't be changed, can't be modified. And the third principle of the functional programming, that write less and get more. So it means smaller syntax will do more actions. So functional programming is the third type of programming paradigms, which is first class citizens. Objects in this functional programs are normally immutable, they cannot be modified, and they write less and get more. The whole idea of using functional programming is to build the faster computations. So one of the examples of the functional programming which saw a lot of traction was Scala. Even Java, with the help of Java 8, when the Java 8 came into the action, Java has got the features of functional programming, all thanks to the functional interface and lambda expressions. So we have talked about procedural. We have talked about the object-oriented programming, and we also talked about the functional. Now, the last programming style, which is called as declarative. Can you guys, any of you in the class knows what is a declarative programming language? What is a declarative programming language, sir? Anyone in the class? A kind of programming language which says that, I will treat you like a king. What does a king does? एक राजा क्या बोलता है? राजा बोलता है कि भाई मैं बोलूंगा और आप मेरे लिए काम करना चालू कर दीजिए. मैं बताऊंगा नहीं कैसे, बस ऑर्डर करूंगा. ठीक है ना? So declarative programming language says that, boss, I will treat you like a king. You just tell me what has to be done. How part you don't have to take care. See, all the other programming language that you saw, for example, Java, C, Python, in सारे programming languages में you learn how वाला part, and for that you have a concept like variables, loops, conditionals. So you have to write your own logic to do it. Declarative programming language says that, boss, आपको राजा वाली फील देंगे, दिमाग लगाना ही नहीं है, आप बस ऑर्डर करते जाओ, आप बस ऑर्डर करो कि मुझे इस स्कूल के सारे बच्चों के नाम लाके दे दो. You just say what, how part, you don't have to do it. So this type of programming style is called as declarative. Example of that is SQL. For example, if you say that I want to get list of all the students from the Amers batch, so what I'll write, I'll go and say that select start from Amers. So when I go and do this, I say that get me all the students from the Amers. That is an example of a declarative. So with this, we have understood all the 4 different types of program paradigm. Now let's move on to the next topic, is compiled versus the scripting. What is the meaning of the compiled versus scripting? See, you know what? Any programming language that you have, you know that at the end of a day, it has to be converted into 100 101, and then only the computer can actually understand it. Now, this whole process of converting a programming language, which is more of like a human understandable language, to convert into the binary so that computer can actually execute your commands, can happen in 2 ways. In one of the ways, what happens, the first way, if I go and talk about, you write the code, then this code is basically checked if you have written the code correctly or not. This step is called as compilation. And if the compilation is successful, this creates something called as a bytecode. And this bytecode is finally executed. So it's a 2-step process. Step 1, that you do the compilation, and the step 2 is when the execution happens. So the programming language which follows this 2-step process, they are called as the compiled programming languages. ऐसा programming language जो 2 step में होता है. पहला आप कोड लिखते हो, उस कोड को चेक करते हैं बॉस कि भैया सब कुछ सही है कि नहीं, सिंटेक्स सही है, ग्रामर सही है. उस step को we go and call it as compilation, and it's compiled, then it's converted into the bytecode. And then this bytecode gets executed. When this happens, this is called as a compiled programming. This is called as a compiled programming language. Example of that could be C++, Java, C. These are all the examples of the compiled programming language. Am I clear, people? Does it make sense? And then there are different other type of a programming language where you actually write the code, and at the same time it is being checked, and then it is getting executed. It is checked and getting executed at the same time in one step itself. This is called as a scripting language or interpreted language. Example of that is Python, JavaScript. These are the example of the scripting language. Now a question for you people is, आपको क्या लगता है इन दोनों में से, इसमें 2 step लग रहा है, इसमें 1 step लग रहा है, which one will be the faster, compiled programming language or scripted programming language? What do you think, which will be the faster? चलिए इसको relatable example से समझने की. Have you guys eaten Domino's pizza? Now let's say there are 2 situations, situation 1 and the situation 2. Situation 1 is that यहाँ पे आप Domino's में गए, and there's a guy who's serving you the pizza. There's only one person, right? And then a person comes in. He orders the pizza. इस बंदे ने ऑर्डर लिया, फिर ये बंदा गया बेक करने के लिए, और उसके बाद बेक करके फिर लाया और फिर ऑर्डर दे रहा है. If the same person is taking the order also and the same person is doing the baking also, right? This is one situation. The second situation is that there are 2 persons, one who is doing the taking the order, and there's another guy who's doing the baking. राइट। तो यहाँ पे बंदा आया, इसने ऑर्डर दिया और यहाँ बेकिंग चालू हो गया, फिर दूसरा बंदा है, ऑर्डर दिया, ये बेकिंग चालू हो गया। आउट ऑफ दीज टू सिचुएशन विच वन विल बी द फास्टर, वन या टू, विच वन विल बी द फास्टर सर? सेकेंड वन, बिकॉज यहाँ पे एक्चुअल मेकिंग पिज्जा यहाँ पे हो रहा है, इसका सिर्फ काम है पिज्जा को मेक करना। Same way here. See, in this case, when the execution is happening, I don't have to worry about कि सही है कि गलत है. I will blindly do the execution. So this will be faster. So compiled programming language like Java, C++, C, where it is already checked that everything is right, only you have to do is execution. It will be faster. But in the scripting languages, जहां पे मैं मुझे फूक फूक के दूध पी रहा है, अगर दूध ठंडा है तो आप एक बार में पी जाओगे फास्ट, पर अगर दूध गर्म है आपको पहले फूकना पड़ेगा, उसको ठंडा करना पड़ेगा, फिर आप पियोगे, इट विल टेक टाइम। सेम थिंग इज हैपनिंग हियर, आपको बार बार चेक करना पड़ेगा, कुछ गलत तो नहीं है दोस्त। So you are checking, executing. So this will take some, no, it will be a slower execution. So comparatively, it is said that compiled programming languages like C++ or Java, they are faster than scripting programming language like Python or JavaScript. This is an important interview question also. Am I clear? Perfect, very nice. Let's move to the next concept. Quickly करते हैं सर, तो टाइम सेव करने की कोशिश करते हैं। फिर आता है बाइनरी नंबर्स का। क्विकली आपको बताओ, binary number is very important for all the computer science students to understand. So I'll quickly tell you the way of converting things. I hope all of you know. Let's say that if I have to convert 10 to, let's say that, I have to convert 12 to a binary number. How will I do it, guys? How will I convert 12 to a binary number? How do I do it? Very quickly, I'll do a quick refresher to all of you because I feel all of you should be aware of it. कैसे करते हैं सर? आपने 12 लिखा है ना सर, आप 1 से लिखना चालू करो, 1, then multiply by 2, 4, 8. Go till the time the value is less than equals to 12. The next one will be 16, so I cannot take it. So I will only go till 8 for 12. Now I start from here. 8 is less than 12, so I count 8. So after I count 8, I will be left with how much? 4. Now 4 is less than 4, so I count 4. This is gone then. Then I don't need to do 2, I don't need to take 1. So the conversion of 12 will be 1, 1, 0, 0. Let me take few more examples. Let's say that I have to do 50. What I go and write? I write first of all 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. I cannot do 64 because 64 is more than 50. Now 32 is less than 50, so I will count 32. So if I go and minus 32 from 15, it will be left how much? I will be left with 18. Now 16 is less than 18, so I'll count that. So if I take 16, now I will be left with 2 more. 8, I cannot take. 4, I cannot take. 2, I can do because 2 is equals to 2, and this is gone, and then 1, 0. The binary number representation of this will be 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. Am I clear? एक और एग्जांपल लेता हूं सर, अच्छे से देखो, and then I'll ask you to give me. Let's say that I have to convert 100 into a binary number, or let's say that 102. 102 I have to do in the binary number. So what I do, I start with 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Okay. Next, I cannot take 128 because 128 will be more than 102, so I'll not take 128. Now 64 is less than 121, so 61 has to be taken. So if I minus 64, 102 minus 64, it will be 8, 38. So value is 38. 32 is less than 30, so I take 32, so I'll be left with 6. 16 is more than 6, I cannot take. 8 is more than 6, I cannot take. I can take 4, so I'm left with 2. I'll do 0, I'll take 0. So 102 will be equals to 11001110. Am I clear, sir? So I've understood that how do I convert a decimal number to binary. Fair? अब दूसरा देख लेते बाइनरी नंबर। मान लो ये बाइनरी नंबर है 1 2 3 4, इसको मुझे कन्वर्ट करना है डेसिमल नंबर में। व्हाट आई नीड टू डू, आप इधर से चालू करो, इसको आप करो 1 इंटू 2 टू द पावर 0, फिर ये वाला 1 इंटू 2 टू द पावर 1, फिर ये वाला 1 इंटू 2 टू द पावर 2, फिर ये वाला 1 इंटू 2 टू द पावर 3 इक्वल्स टू 1 2 4 8. So value will be how much? 15. यही होगा ना? 1010 1, 1, 1. Okay. So what I do first, I start from here. This 1 into 2 to the power 0. This is done. Now I'll come here. 1 into 2 to the power 0 plus 1 into 2 to the power 1. फिर ये वाला आ गया 1 into 2 to the power 2. Then I'll come here 0 into 2 to the power 3. Then I come here 1 into 2 to the power 4. Then I come here 0 into 2 to the power 5. Then I come here 1 into 2 to the power 6. Fair? So this value is 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 0 plus 16 plus 0 plus how much will you 16, 32, 64. So the value will be how much? 1, 2 plus 3, 7, 16, 7 plus 16 plus 64. This is will be equals to 87. Very nice. Fair enough. Am I clear? Fair enough. Let's take one more thing. How do I convert a fraction? Let's say that I have a number like this, 4.25, and I want to convert that into a binary number. I have a fraction number like this 4.25 and I have to convert into the binary number. So whenever you have a fraction number, guys, please focus on the screen. You have to divide into the two parts. One is the left part, the left to the decimal part, which is 4. So first of all, we convert for the 4. So it will be 1, 2, and 4. It will be 1, 0, 0. So the 4 value will be equals to 1, 0, 0. Then the important part is now 0.25. So you have 0.25. You have to multiply with 2 boss. So you get 0.5. So whatever is the left hand side, you go and write here. And then whatever is the right hand side, you go and again multiply 0.5 into 2, it becomes equals to 1.0. So as soon as you become to the 0, you stop here. As soon as you reach 0 right hand side. So I stop here. So the decimal representation of 4.25 will be whole number part is 100 and after decimal I have 0, 1. Am I clear, people? Does that make sense? Let's take one more example. Let's say that I want to do it for 10.3. Or let's say that I want to do it for 10.2. Okay. Let's first start for doing for the 10. So 10 it is 1, 2, 4, 8. This is 1, 0, 1, 0. So this will be equals to 1, 0, 1, 0. Then I'm left with 0.2. Sir, focus करिएगा इधर. जो number decimal को आपको 2 से multiply करना है, it becomes 0.4. Whatever is the left is here and I take 0.4 back again. This becomes equals to 0.8. So again take 8 and this becomes 0.8 into 2 equals to 1.6. Left is 1, so I take 1 and then again do 0.6 into 2. This becomes equals to 1.2. I take 1 and then again it becomes 0.2 into 2 is equals to 0.4. Now if you see here, it was 0.4 and again it has come 0. So it is now repeating. Because after this, the sequence will keep on repeating. So the answer of this will be 1010 dot 0011 and then you put like represent that it will repeat. So this is how you go and represent 10.2 as. Am I clear? Am I clear, sir? Does it make sense? So the point that we come from here is that not every decimal number can be accurately represented in binary. There will be some, this is an accurate number 10.2, but when I go and represent in the binary, it's not accurate. It's an approximation, and this might give you some errors in the calculations. समझ में आ गया? So what I want you to take care from here is that, you know, if you're a little sincere, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि decimal से आप कैसे convert करते हो binary में. Decimal में जो fraction वाला number है, उसको आप कैसे convertते हो binary में और binary से वापस. And then one more thing, how do you go and convert a negative number into the binary? ये मैंने आपको नहीं बताया है, but I want you people to go and explore this. It's must. Every people who is trying to make a career in the IT, this skill is a must for all of you people. चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. अगला इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट जो मैं आपको बताना चाह रहा था, डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स एंड एल्गोरिथम. दिस इज सुपर इंपॉर्टेंट. व्हाट इज डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स एंड एल्गोरिथम? द आर्ट ऑफ स्ट्रक्चरिंग data. Now, why it is so important for all of us, whether you are a data scientist, you are a Java developer, you are a full stack developer, why it is so important? Because almost every company these days, boss, they are relying on data. और डेटा में आप दो ही चीजें करते हो, आप डेटा के साथ स्टोरेज करते हो और डेटा के साथ आप कंप्यूटेशन करते हो. तो मैं चाहता हूं, या फिर कंपनीज आपसे ये चाहती है कि जब कंपनी में काम करो तो इस डेटा को स्टोर भी अच्छे से कर पाओ और कंप्यूट भी अच्छे से कर पाओ. इसको इफेक्टिवली करने के लिए जो कॉन्सेप्ट आपको चाहिए, विच इज ऑफ डीएसए, एंड दैट्स व्हाई इट हैज बिकम एक्सीडिंगली इंपॉर्टेंट. जैसे जैसे हम लोग एडवांस करते जा रहे हैं, द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ डीएसए इज बिकमिंग मल्टीफोल्ड. So whether this year, coming year, or any time in the future, you want to make it big, any good company that you want to go and go for, डीएसए आपको आना ही पड़ेगा. एक क्विक रोड मैप आपको बता दूं मैं, डीएसए में आपको क्या क्या पढ़ना होता है. So DSM, you always start with some very basic concepts, and this should be the right strategy of doing it, right? First of all, you should understand about the time and the space complexity. This is the P0. And then you have a very basic concept called as a recursion. Recursion is one concept which is needed for across the DSA topics. तो आपको recursion जितनी जल्दी आप कर लोगे, that will be helpful. Then you start with a linear data structure where you need to go and learn arrays, linked list, stack, queue, right? And while you are doing this, in the parallel, in the algorithm sides, right? Once you have done this, so first of all, you should do this. This is the level 0. Then you should do this one, and then you should do this, which is sorting algorithms. Once you've done sorting algorithm, then you do this, you do this, you do this. After you are done with this, then you should start something called as non-linear data structures. For example, you should spend a good amount of time in the tree, then you should spend a good amount of time in the priority queue, then you should spend time on the graphs, then this joint data sets. Once that is done, then you should go and talk about selection algorithms. Then you should talk about divide and conquer. Then you should talk about the string algorithms. Then you should go and talk about greedy. Then you should talk about the bit manipulation. Then you should talk about dynamic programming. Then you can talk about the miscellaneous. This is all thing that you have to do for getting into any type of FANG companies. If you're going to ask me out of 10 points, how many importance I'll give it, I'll say that out of 10 points, if you ask me how much importance it is, I'll give 100 points to the syllabus. कुछ वेब एप्लीकेशंस के बारे में बात कर लेते हैं. All the web application holders in the room. What is the difference between the website and the web apps, guys? Anyone? अगर आपको बताना हो एक 5 साल के बच्चे को, what is the difference between the website and a web apps? What will you say? Can you guys quickly tell me what is the difference? आज से 10 years from the now, almost all the applications were not web sites, they were websites. A general difference is that normally a websites are considered to be only static, read only. Even today, some website that you can see, for example, Wikipedia, blogging websites, right? For example, newspaper, इसको हम website कहते हैं. Any application that you open over web, जहाँ पे you can both read and write. For example, when you go and open LinkedIn, you can read someone post, you can write your own post, you can upload your own photograph, right? When you go to Gmail, you can write the emails, you can read the emails, all of those you can go and typically do it. So those are called as the web applications. Those are typically called as the web apps. Am I clear, people? So आज की modern day में almost every time when I say that I'm teaching you, we are actually teaching you the web applications. ठीक है. और एक वेब एप्लीकेशन जो होता है वो कैसा होता है, कैन यू गाइस टेल मी? तो वही समरी आप कह रहा हूं, जो ब्लॉग का जो मेन पोर्शन होता है, राइट, दैट इज स्टैटिक. And these days you have added some additional features here, right? So this part, this is more of like a web app. where you can read and write. So normally, in order to bring dynamic nature to the places, almost everything that you see in the market, like 95% of the things that you see in the market are in the form of a web apps, are in the form of the web app. So all of you are actually working on this web app itself. So now since we have understood web app, another important is how is the internet works? How does the internet works? What is the meaning of internet? Internet का मतलब क्या होता है? Or if I go and say that when you go and type, let's say the www.facebook.com on the browser, आपका जो ब्राउजर है वो कैसे लोड कर लेता है? How does it loads? कभी आपने सोचा है सर? Let's try to talk about it. सबसे पहले अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं व्हाट इज इंटरनेट. इंटरनेट का मतलब होता है इट्स अ नो interconnection of networks. इंटरनेट का मतलब है कि दुनिया के जो कैन यू गाइस मेक अ गेस कितने वेब एप्लीकेशंस होंगे अभी दुनिया में? हाउ मेनी वेबसाइट्स, वेब एप्स? अगर मैं आपको एक एस्टिमेट बताऊं ना तो इट्स क्लोज टू अराउंड 1.8 बिलियन के आसपास अपने पास वेब एप्लीकेशंस है. ये सारे वेब एप्लीकेशन किसी ना किसी कंप्यूटर पे लगे हुए हैं, राइट? I have computer in my house, I have mobile phone, you have mobile phone, you have laptop, you have computer. Everyone in this world have some devices. So this complex connection, so that every device in this world are kind of some way connected to each other, is being facilitated by something called as a internet. दुनिया के internet is a medium through which all the devices, all the mobile phones, all the computers, all the servers, all the companies, they all are interconnected. And that's called as the whole process of internet. Fair enough. Does it make sense? So what is internet? Internet is basically a very big network which is interconnected. That's why it is called as internet. अब इंटरनेट को करने के लिए आपको पता है कुछ फैंसी चीजें. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप अभी इंडिया में हो और इंडिया में मान लो अगर आप अभी फॉर एग्जाम्पल इंस्टाग्राम चला रहे हो, तो इंस्टाग्राम जो नियरेस्ट है वो आपका मान लीजिए यूएस के लास वेगस का जो डेटा सेंटर है वहां पे वो रन हो रहा है, मान लो वहां के सिस्टम पे रन हो रहा है. अब आप इंडिया और लॉस वेगस यूएस के बीच में देयर इज अ ह्यूज डिस्टेंस. Still you see that you are able to browse all this data very fast. कैसे पॉसिबल होता है सर? How does that happen? CDN is one thing, but CDN को कभी भी तो लोड करके लाना पड़ता होगा ना. CDN is one thing, but still it has to go and load down. In order to ensure that कि यहां से लेके यहां तक इंटरनेट is fast, हम क्या करते हैं ना, इसके अंदर इंडिया और यूएस के बीच में देयर इज अ सी, समुद्र है. समुद्र के अंदर में हम ऑप्टिकल फाइबर बिछाते हैं सर, ऑप्टिकल फाइबर. ये जितनी भी बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज है ना, फॉर एग्जांपल माइक्रोसॉफ्ट, गूगल, मेटा, दे स्पेंड करोड़्स, बिलियंस कि वो समुद्र के अंदर में ऑप्टिकल फाइबर बिछा रखा है उन लोगों ने, ताकि जब डेटा पास ऑन हो रहा हो इधर से लेके इधर अक्रॉस द कॉन्टिनेंट, इट्स एट द स्पीड ऑफ light. There's a very fancy documentary on YouTube which talks about that how these optical fibers are set inside the seabed. Now, please, if आपको time मिले तो go and watch those kind of videos. It will help you understand that. Fair enough. So it's again very fancy. When you see and watch this video, you'll amaze that how the internet thing works by actually putting the cables inside the seabeds, so that the data between the US, India, and two different continents could be passed on very fast. I'll just ping you. You just search over the. अभी मेरे को नाम handy याद नहीं आ रहा है. You can just search over the the YouTube saying that how the optical fibers are placed inside the seabed. You will find that. Cool. Now let me again ask you that. Let's say that when I typed in www.facebook.com, what happens? How is it loaded? Let's say that my Facebook server is lying somewhere here in the US. and server has some IP address of 128.98.56.49. How does when I go and type www.facebook.com in my browser, I open up? So the very first thing which happens is that as soon as I go and open it, I will go and check in my browser cache that what is the IP address for this domain name, for this www.facebook.com, what is the IP address? If this browser has already the IP address set as 121.98.56.49, so it will get this IP address and then this will make a call to this server directly over the internet. In the case, if it is not present in the browser cache, right? If it is not present, let's say that you had installed the browser for the first time, then it will go to the local cache of your laptop or machine where you have done a DNS mapping. So I'll just tell you a secret. Typically, whether you're on a Windows machine or a Mac machine, depending on operating system, you can just do a quick search that where the DNS mapping is there. Let's say that you don't want your friend or a child in your house to use, say, for example, Instagram, or let's say, for example, Facebook, or say, for example, YouTube. What you can do is that you can go inside this DNS file and there will be a key value pair mentioned. So in the place of facebook.com, you change the IP address of the facebook.com to some other, say, for example, Sanskar TV. And that way, every time someone will try to open Facebook on the browser, they will end up opening the Sanskar TV. So that's what happens. So you go to this file and then you go have the mapping of the URL or the DNS to the IP address. Let's suppose that your laptop is also new and it is not no entry here itself, right? So typically what happens in this case, in that case, it goes to your router. On router also, there's a DNS mapping which is kept, DNS mapping. Right? So, and this router will go and provide you the IP address and you can go and reach it. Let's say the router is also new. For the first time you're using it, does not have any DNS mapping. In that case, then it reaches out to the ISP, which is the internet service provider. Let's say that Airtel is your internet service provider. So Airtel will be running something called as a DNS server, which will have the mapping of URLs with the IP address. There's a very high chance that the internet service provider will have this mapping and will return back. Router will cache it, laptop will cache it, and the browser will cache it. In the case if this local DNS server also does not have, it will go to the global DNS server. And here it will try to find that record. If it finds, great. Otherwise, then it says that this domain name does not exist. So every time you go and hit www.facebook.com, these are the complex steps, the conversions which happens in the browser. अब बात आती है फ्रंट एंड क्या होता है, बैक एंड होता है. I think you guys are already aware of. If I go and talk about a web application these days, a web application comprised of the three different parts. There's a part which you open in your browser or a mobile phone, right? With the end user user, that typically is called as a front end. And normally front end को बनाने के लिए हम technologies क्या use करते हैं? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and its libraries like, for example, React. So a part of the application which the end user use करता है, आपका customer use करता है, उसको हम बोल देते हैं front end. Right? So front end is something which the end user uses. But every time you open a Netflix, you see there's so many movies. But are these movies on your laptop? When you open a YouTube, there are hundreds and thousands of the videos. Are they on your laptop? No. When you open your Instagram, you see a lot of things. You open a Instagram, you see a lot of reels. Where it is coming from? Who is providing that data? So the layer which provides data to the front end over network is called as the backend. So backend is basically the brain of the system. I go and call it as the brain of the system. It is the actual place where all the crunching and munching of the data will happen. All the logic will come in. That's typically is called as a backend. And then you realize that if you upload a photograph on Instagram, you never lose it. Even you come after 2 years, it's still there. So the layer which helps you store that data, that typical layer is called as the databases. So a typical web application comprises of front end, back end, and database. And the guy who knows all of these द पर्सन इन डिमांड, जिसका सारी कंपनीज इंतजार करती है, दिस पर्सन इज कॉल्ड एज अ फुल स्टैक डेवलपर्स। तो जब आप फुल स्टैक डेवलपमेंट कोर्स लेते हो एमर्स पे, ये सारी चीजें आपको पढ़ाई जाती है। प्लस आपको पढ़ाया जाता है डेवऑप्स, प्लस आपको पढ़ाया जाता है क्लाउड, एंड प्लस आपको हम और पढ़ाते हैं एआई। Am I clear to this point? Let's move on to the next topic, databases. अब थोड़ा databases के बारे में देख लेते हैं सर, क्विक, कि how the database journey has been so far. If I talk about the databases, no sir, database is what? Database is for storing information, storing info. The whole concept of database is not new. From the humankind, from the time the human civilization started, we like storing data. Even the time when we cannot write anything, कुछ लिखने के लिए नहीं था, तो हम डेटा कैसे पास ऑन करते थे एक जनरेशन से दूसरी जनरेशन तक? कान में बोलते थे, हम मेमोराइज कर लेते थे दिमाग में, बोल बोल कर याद करके एक जनरेशन से दूसरी जनरेशन तक इंफॉर्मेशन को पास करते थे। फिर जैसे जैसे टाइम बढ़ा, वी हैव द स्टोन्स, देन वी स्टार्टेड राइटिंग ऑन द लीव्स, देन पेन एंड पेपर केम अप, and then the biggest leap in this direction of the database happened when we started making use of computers. And with computers, we have a digital storage. Now, in the world of the computers, when the computer started, the first major breakthrough happened in the 1950s when the first form of a database came up, which was called as the file-based storage system. File-based storage system क्या है? अगर सिंपल तरीके से मैं बताऊं, आप में से सभी लैपटॉप यूज करते हो। लैपटॉप मान लीजिए आपका विंडोज का है, विंडोज में आप गए डी फोल्डर में, डी फोल्डर के आपने अंदर एक फोल्डर बना दिया फ्रेंड्स, और फ्रेंड्स फोल्डर के अंदर में आपने फाइल बना दिया a.txt, और इसके अंदर में आपने एक नाम लिख दिया राहुल इज अ चीटर। तो ये जो फाइल बनाया आपने और इसके अंदर में आपने ये जो लाइन लिख दिया राहुल इज अ चीटर, सॉरी नो ऑफेंस टू राहुल इन द हाउस, ठीक है, इसको ही हम लोग बोलते हैं फाइल बेस्ड स्टोरेज सिस्टम। एम आई क्लियर? Am I clear, sir? Does it make sense? What is a file-based storage system? When you go and make files, go and store data into it, that's called as file-based storage system. In the beginning, जब ये file-based storage system हुआ, then every people was so happy. They felt as if कि यार ये तो मजा ही आ गया, right? ये तो मजा ही आ गया. They felt as if the file-based storage system was the the introduction of Amitabh in Bollywood. जैसे अमिताभ की एंट्री होती है बॉलीवुड में, वैसे ही फाइल बेस्ड स्टोरेज सिस्टम का जब पहली दफा इंट्रोडक्शन हुआ, लोगों को लगा यार ये तो बेस्ट है, दिस इज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट स्टोरेज सिस्टम व्हिच इज अवेलेबल। But we as a human, we are never satisfied. As we made progress, people started cribbing about the file-based storage system. They started saying that it is complex. They started showing that it leads to the redundancy. They started showing that it is not secure. Security में challenge है। तो ये सारे challenges आने लगे। इन सारे challenges को solve करने के लिए people started thinking about a new solution which was called as DBMS, which stand for the Database Management System. डेटाबेस मैनुअल सिस्टम में उन्होंने बोला कि दो पार्ट होंगे, एक तो आपको होगा डेटाबेस जहां पे एक्चुअल डेटा स्टोर होता है, एंड देन ऑन द टॉप ऑफ द डेटाबेस यू विल हैव अ प्रोग्रामेटिक लेयर, right, which tells that how data will be stored. तो डीबीएमएस आने का फायदा ये हो गया कि इसकी वजह से इट वाज इजी टू यूज, दैट्स नंबर वन। दूसरा, यू गेट अ इजी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज लाइक SQL टू क्वेरी द डेटा, एंड सिंस you have a full control, so it was more secure. That's how the database management system came up. Now, so we had file-based storage system, and then we had the DBMS. Then came around year 2000s. In the year 2000, we started building the real world applications. And I know that to build the real world applications, we had to represent the real world entities and relations. Now, at the layer of application, I have something called as OOPS to take care of it. But at the end of a day, I would like to go and store data into the data. So I need to have a database which can actually store these entities and also the relationships. And for that, we have something called as a relational database management system, RDBMS. So RDBMS is used when you have to go and store a structured data, when you have to do the transaction, right? When you have to have the relationship. And one of the most commonly used and widely popular RDBMS in the market is Oracle और MySQL. Oracle and MySQL नाम के दुनिया के दो सबसे बेहतरीन RDBMS आपके पास है. Am I clear till this point? Does it make sense? Am I clear? File-based storage system, database management system, relational database management system. But now we are never happy with the one. As we moved further, the world started using data heavily. Now in the modern world, the data that we use, we have dynamic structure. एग्जाम्पल के लिए मान लो आप फ्लिपकार्ट पे काम कर रहे हो. फ्लिपकार्ट में आपको आइटम्स को स्टोर करना है टेबल में, आइटम्स को स्टोर करना है टेबल में, लेट्स से दैट. अब ईच आइटम, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक आइटम है तो उसके 5 एट्रीब्यूट्स हो सकते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल नेम क्या है, ब्रांड क्या है, कॉस्ट क्या है, कलर क्या है, वारंटी क्या है. इफ इट्स अ हाउस होल्ड आइटम, it only has 3 attributes. If it is a cosmetic item, it will have the 7 attributes. Now the different items have different number of attributes. I cannot go and store it in the same table because it has a dynamic schema. तो जब आपका डेटा इतना ज्यादा है कि स्कीमा फिक्स नहीं है, स्ट्रक्चर फिक्स नहीं है, you have a dynamic schema, RDBMS cannot fit into that. And for that, we came up a new concept of database called as a NoSQL. So NoSQL you go and make use of when you have unstructured data, when you have a dynamic schema. Right? So what we say that in this whole scheme of databases, you have file-based storage system, came up with DBMS, came up with the RDBMS, and then it came with the NoSQL, and each have their own unique use cases. As someone from the field of database or someone from the field of full stack development, Java development, understanding all these database becomes exceedingly important again. ठीक है. तो जब भी आपको ऐसा डेटा स्टोर करना होता है बॉस जो कि अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड है, यू हैव अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड डेटा, अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड, यू हैव डायनामिक स्कीमा, तो वहां पे आप NoSQL यूज करेंगे. ठीक है. फिर इतना आपके जानने के लिए आज के सेशन के लिए इनफ है. जब आप सेशंस करते हो, कोर्स लेते हो, इन सब के बारे में हम डिटेल में बात करते हैं. फाइल बेस्ड स्टोरेज के बारे में, DBMS के बारे में, RDBMS के बारे में, ये सारी चीजें भी डिटेल में वी वांट डिस्कस. कूल. नाउ कमिंग टू APIs. APIs क्या है? API का फुल फॉर्म होता है एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग इंटरफेसेस. APIs का काम होता है एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग इंटरफेसेस. मतलब कि कभी आपने सोचा है कि फॉर एग्जांपल आप सभी ने उबर यूज किया होगा, राइट? उबर के अंदर में आप मैप देख लेते हो, है ना, कि आपका ड्राइवर कब आ रहा है, उबर या ओला. कभी आपने सोचा कि ये जो मैप है वो किसके पास है? ये मैप इज बीइंग गिवन बाय द गूगल, पर गूगल मैप उबर अपने अंदर में यूज कर रहा है, दिखला रहा है. हाउ इट इज एबल टू डू इट? दे आर एबल टू डू इट विद समथिंग कॉल्ड एज एन APIs. So APIs are nothing but when two application 1 and application 2, if they have to communicate, they do it with the help of something called as the APIs. They do it with the help of something called as APIs. Am I clear, sir? इंटरवेंशन हुआ था, उसको कहते हैं सोप. और इस सोप वो नहीं जिससे आप नहाते हो. इस सोप का फुल फॉर्म होता है सिंपल ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सेस प्रोटोकॉल. इसको कहते हैं सिंपल ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सेस प्रोटोकॉल. क्या है ये सोप? सिंपल ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सेस प्रोटोकॉल. ये कहता है कि दोस्त आप क्या करते हो, ये आपका ऐप 1 है, ये ऐप 2 है। ऐप 1 मान लो लिखा गया है जावा में, और ऐप 2 मान लो लिखा गया है पाइथन में। अब देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड एज एन एक्सएमएल। तो जावा का जो भी डेटा है उसको मैं पहले कन्वर्ट करता हूँ एक्सएमएल में। एक्सएमएल को फिर मैं कन्वर्ट कर देता हूँ 0 1 बाइनरी में, और फिर उसको मैं नेटवर्क से ट्रांसफर कर देता हूँ। आई गो एंड ट्रांसफर ओवर द नेटवर्क, राइट, एंड देन आई कम हियर। यहाँ पे आने के बाद फिर ये जो बाइनरी है 0 1 1 1 समथिंग, इसको मैं कन्वर्ट कर देता हूँ एक्सएमएल में, और एक्सएमएल फिर से पाइथन में कन्वर्ट हो जाता है। तो इस तरीके से ये एक दूसरे से कम्युनिकेट कर पाते हैं। इस स्ट्रेटजी ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन को हम लोग बोलते थे सर टू सिंपल ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सेस प्रोटोकॉल। But over a period of time, as the people say, this went on that people started cribbing about it. उन्होंने बोलने लगा कि ये जो सोप है वो जो XML यूज करता है, XML इज वेरी हैवी, इसकी वजह से ये स्लो भी है, परफॉर्मेंस नीचे रह रहा है। एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस रीजन इवेंचुअली पीपल स्टॉप्ड यूजिंग सोप। मैं हमेशा आपको बोलता हूँ सर, आईटी वर्ल्ड में whether a software developer like you and me, or a technology like SOAP, or a programming language like C++, if we don't evolve, if we don't make ourselves better, if we don't know what things are needed, the world doesn't think even twice before throwing us out. ठीक है ना? So same thing happened with the SOAP. SOAP भैया manage नहीं कर पाया. So the next thing which came into the market was, what was that? That was REST. रेस्ट ने बोला कि सोप आप इसलिए नहीं यूज करते हो बिकॉज वो एक्सएमएल को यूज करता है, और एक्सएमएल इज हैवी एंड इट इज स्लो। सो रेस्ट बोला कि मैं इनको फिक्स करता हूं। रेस्ट सेड दैट आई विल स्टार्ट यूजिंग JSON which is light, which is faster, and which uses HTTP protocols. And suddenly, because of all these things, आज के डेट में almost 90% of the APIs, they are all REST APIs. हमारे यहाँ भी जब आप बैकएंड में APIs बनाओगे, they will be called as the RESTful APIs that we go and build. Said that, we have that world has been doing with SOAP, then REST. Even people these days who was working in the top companies, they have started criticizing this. They're saying that, but even this is not fast enough. And to fix this, they have come up with a new strategy of optimizing this, and that you use something called as a proto buff. And for that, you use a new API format, which is called as gRPC. Already when I was working at LinkedIn, almost all our APIs, we have already moved from the REST to the gRPC. So I have also made sure that now all the other places, I'm pretty sure no one is teaching you gRPC these days, but we at Emerge will also teach you gRPC, which these days normally only Google is using or LinkedIn is using. But say like 2 or 3 years down the line, almost all the companies will replace REST and they will all start making use of gRPC. Am I clear, people? Does it make sense? So this has been the journey of the APIs boss, right? We started with SOAP. We have understood. The challenge was I was using XML. Then I was using REST. Typically here I was using JSON. And these days people are moving towards gRPC, which is using something called as a proto buff. Cool, eh? So with this we have come to the end of this session. I hope आपको एक अच्छी clarity मिल गई है. All the 25 concepts are super clear to you people. And now since we have understood all this, it's time to move beyond this, learn on the top of it. And these things will help us go and make it big. So keep on learning, keep on adding values to your own career. And yes, at Coding Shala, I'll keep on bringing more amazing videos for you people.